All right, good evening, class. Tonight's lesson is Chapter 3, Lesson 3. Once again, we'll break this into 2 days. So day 1, we're going to be looking at dividing a whole number by decimal. Steps for dividing a whole number by a decimal. Obviously, number 1, you got to write the problem down. 2 divided by 0.4. What I like to do is I like to change them both to a fraction. So change 2 to a fraction is 2 over 1. 0.4 becomes 4 over 10, and the reason it does is because the number is what's going to become your top number, the 4. Now look at how many place values it is to the right. That's 1, so you're going to put it over 10. So now that we have two fractions, it's just like what we were working on a couple lessons ago. Don't change the first one, 2 over 1. Change it from a division problem to a multiplication problem, and use the reciprocal, so 10 over 4. So 2 over 1 times 10 over 4. Multiply the numerators. 2 times 10 is 20. Multiply the denominators. 1 times 4 is 4. Reduce your answer to simplest form. 20 divided by 4 is 5. Well, let's work out a few. So we have, first of all, let's change it. So we have two fractions. So we're obviously putting this over 1. And the reason we put it over 1 is because 1 does not change the value. 4 divided by 1 is still 4. We take the number. We're not going to worry about the 0. So we have a 5. And that 5 is in the tens place, so we're going to put it over 10. So now we have our two fractions. Let's go ahead and change it to a multiplication problem. 4 over 1 times 10 over 5. And now we can go ahead and multiply the top, multiply the bottom. 4 times 10 is 40. 1 times 5 is 5. And this is, the way we read this is improper because the top number is bigger than the bottom, first of all. 40 divided by 5. 40 divided by 5 is 8. First example. Next example, 5 divided by 0.2. So let's put 5 over 1. Doesn't change the value. 5 divided by 1 is still 5. Remember, we're not changing the problem. And 2, and that number's in the tens place, so over 10. Now that we've done that, we can go ahead and change it to a multiplication problem. Remember, the first fraction stays as it is, 5 over 1 times 10 over 2. That's the reciprocal. Go ahead and multiply the top numbers. 5 times 10 is 50. 1 times 2 is 2. Once again, this is improper because the top number is bigger than the bottom number. So we need to divide. This means 50 divided by 2, which would give us 25. One more. So we have 8. We're going to put that over 1. 8 over 1 does not change the value. Divided by 8 over 10. Why? Because the 8's in the tens place. So we can change this to a multiplication problem. So 8 over 1 times 10 over 8, multiplying by the reciprocal. I'm going to go ahead and multiply the top two numbers. 8 times 10 is 80. 1 times 8 is 8. This is an improper fraction. So we read this as 80 divided by 8. 80 divided by 8 is 10. One thing I want to show you real quick is if you had, let's say you had 0 if you had 0.35. If we had 0.35, our fraction would be 35 over 100. And the reason it would be 35 over 100 is because we have two place values to the right of the decimal. If it was 0.712, the fraction would be 712, and you probably guessed it, over 1,000, because there's three places to the right of the decimal, so we need 3 zeros. Okay, and we'll talk about that if you have any more questions about that in class tomorrow. I don't know how many decimal places we have to go, but I know we'll probably have to go at least 2, so it's a good example to show you in class tomorrow. Be ready to work. We got a lot to do, page 93, 4 to 20. Bring your materials, get a good night's sleep, and we will see you tomorrow. Good night.